We've all heard kids say, "That's not fair." It can come out whining or in a meltdown or sometimes even like a dare. Are you really going to tell me this is fair? In these moments, I feel a little like I have an angel and devil on each shoulder. The angel is encouraging me to comfort the child in distress, but the little devil wants to be like, "Kid, do you have any idea how good you have it?" I mean, here's the reality. Most of the things kids complain are not fair are totally fair. You don't get presents on someone else's birthday? Fair. You're expected to do homework before screen time? Also fair. But as we adults know all too well, life is not fair. And it's okay to remind kids of this fact, but they may not be so open to lessons on perspective and gratitude when they're upset. I'm Deanna, and here on the Not So Wicked Stepmother, we discuss blended family life. If you're new here, please subscribe for a weekly video. So this topic of what's fair can feel even more complicated as a step-parent. It may be uncomfortable to consider, but you even being there might be one of the things that doesn't feel fair to your stepkid. I've been actively, lovingly involved in my stepkids' lives for over 6 years, and even so, I'm aware that they may sometimes wish their parents lived together. That has nothing to do with me personally. A kid missing their mom or dad is not a rejection of their step-parent. But it really isn't fair that kids get shuffled back and forth between two homes. And as a step-parent, you may represent the complications in their family. So when my stepkids declare something isn't fair, it can feel more loaded, especially if it has anything to do with my son. As you may know, I'm mom to a 4-year-old and stepmom to 2 kids, ages 9 and 11. It is so very normal for older kids to think their younger siblings are getting special treatment, because to some degree, they are. There are different expectations for a preschooler than there are for a preteen. But as a step-parent, it can be demoralizing to hear your older stepkids complaining about fairness when you're working so hard to be even-handed in your parenting. So today I have some tips to help you trust your judgment and learn how to support your kiddos when they're feeling slighted. I have found it helpful to handle this differently depending on the circumstance. So I'll discuss it in 3 broad categories: the day-to-day, the special occasions, and the complicated stuff. Starting with the day-to-day. This is where I would put all the little complaints that are pretty ridiculous and may make you want to laugh or cry depending on your state of mind when they come up. In my experience, the best way to handle these little accusations of injustice is simply to validate their feelings. It's easier said than done, because it's totally normal to feel defensive. I have fallen into the trap of trying to explain to them why whatever's happening is totally fair. It does not go well. I doubt any upset child can carefully consider your argument and say, "Oh yes, you made a good point." It's about as effective as getting into a debate with a stranger online. Except unlike an internet troll, your kids' feelings are real, and your priority is your relationship with them. Even though I acknowledge the absurdity of trying to reason with a child in distress, I have totally done it. We all make mistakes. The best we can do is reflect on what didn't work and try to do it better in the future. So now when a kid says something isn't fair, even if I disagree, I focus on validation. They may still feel upset, but at least they are heard. Here's an example. I'm serving leftovers, and one of the kids says, "We ate this last night. It's not fair." I could respond by saying, "I understand. You feel like eating something different tonight. This is what's for dinner." Now here's the hard part for me. Stop talking. I'm tempted to launch into how lucky we are to have enough food to eat and how wasteful it would be to throw away leftovers. And that's true, and I've said it. But in this moment, the kid doesn't feel like it's fair, and they're allowed to feel however they feel. The best we can do is just validate that and move on. Dwelling on the problem, even in an attempt to turn it into a teachable moment, is not helpful. The fact is, they already have the perspective. They know that we're lucky to have food. They just don't feel like eating it, and they're allowed to feel that way. My desire to explain things can be useful, like when the kids miss out on vacations or events because of the custody schedule. This is an area that blended family life does feel unfair. My stepkids are with us half the time, which means they have all sorts of experiences without us when they're with their mom. But it's hard for them to understand that our lives go on without them. As a stepmom, it's easy to feel bad when you can't include your stepkids in everything, but it isn't realistic to fit your entire life into half of the calendar. That means there will be things, sometimes fun things, that happen without your stepkids. And even if they showed no interest in it, if you do it without them, they might feel left out. Just like when they don't want to eat leftovers, this can be irritating, but their feelings are valid. The difference is this is a time that offering some explanations might be helpful. We recently encountered this with my stepdaughter, who was upset she didn't get to attend an event I took my son to without her. In my mind, I'd made it fair by planning something different with her another day, but she didn't make that connection until I made it clear. I can't control when things happen, and I can't promise I won't take my son anywhere cool without his siblings. But by reassuring her that I'm making a deliberate effort to be fair and include them, she felt a little more seen. It's not perfect, but as a stepmom, all I can do is play the long game and hope that over time my stepkids will see that I was fair, even if they don't always feel that way in the moment. And that brings us to the complicated stuff. There are ways I'm more hands-off with my stepkids out of respect for their mom, and that can be trickier to discuss. One good example is birthday parties. She loves throwing parties for them, and I love planning them for my son. I would be happy to help plan their parties, but I consider it their mom's domain. It never occurred to me until this year that that might be a way they perceive favoritism toward my son, because they can see how much effort I put into his party, and they know I don't do that for them. So we decided to talk about it. They may not fully understand, but I wanted to let them know there are things I don't do for them, not because I don't want to, but because their mom does want to. There are times there's room for you and their mom. I attend most school events like concerts and talent shows because it's important for the kids to feel loved and supported by every parent, and because there's nothing cuter than third graders singing Stevie Wonder. These are magical moments of childhood that I want to be part of. But there are times I'm asked if I'm coming to something and I say, no, you and your mom get to do that together, just the two of you. I think it goes without saying, but it's important enough I want to be clear. This is different than saying, your mom doesn't want me there. The idea is to not insert yourself into every moment and give their mom some space. It should never feel to them like you're being pushed out or that your presence is unwanted, even if that is the case. I've said before, I understand some families have more tension than others, but the kids should be protected from that as much as possible. And for what it's worth, I think learning how to show up for your kids without taking the spotlight helps build your relationship with their mom too. It's always a good idea to check your motives. The goal should be to support them, not to be in competition with her. So if your kids say, it's not fair, mom always gets us ice cream after soccer practice, you could say, that's so cool, I bet you look forward to doing that together. You don't have to do it exactly the same. That is not what it means to be fair. You'll find your own traditions, and hopefully someday they will appreciate you didn't try to duplicate every special thing they did with their mom. The topic of fairness is a big one, and I'm only scratching the surface with these ideas. But I hope you come away feeling a little more prepared the next time you hear that dreaded, "It's not fair." The feelings are valid, even if there's no actual injustice. Sometimes discussing it is unnecessary. Other times, kids deserve a little more information. Trust your gut, hang in there, even when it's not fair. Thank you for joining me. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week.